My name is Megan, and I thought my daughter was safe with my parents. Until the day they looked me in the eye and told me, "We're tired of her. Don't bring her back." While my 6-year-old clutched her pink backpack, sobbing silently, my heart shattered into something unrecognizable. I always believed my family would protect her like they once protected me. I was wrong. Before we begin, where are you watching from today? Drop your city or country in the comments. I'd love to see how far this story reaches. And if you've ever had to choose between your parents and your child, this one's for you. It was just past 4 in the afternoon when I pulled into my parents' driveway, the September wind already crisp in suburban Minnesota. I remember noticing the red leaves scattered along the sidewalk like someone had arranged them on purpose. I'd come to pick up Ellie, my daughter, my little joy, 6 going on 60, and I wasn't expecting anything unusual until my mother opened the front door and didn't even step aside. "She's ready," she said flatly. "Take her and don't bring her back." At first, I thought I misheard her. I waited for the laugh, the wink, the signal that this was just one of her dramatic moments. But she didn't blink. What do you mean?" I asked, shifting my weight, suddenly feeling like a teenager again, unsure and out of place on a porch I used to race up every summer afternoon. "We're tired of her," my mother repeated. Then louder, "She's too much, Megan. She cries too much, talks too much, and she doesn't listen." I could see Ellie standing just behind her, small and confused, gripping her pink unicorn backpack like it might float her away. Her eyes were already wet. "Mom," I began, trying to hold my voice steady, "is this because of something that happened today?" That's when my father appeared behind her, holding his usual mug of lukewarm coffee. "It's not just today," he said. "She's not like Claire's kids. She's difficult. We're too old for this. It's exhausting." He looked right at me and shrugged. "She's just too much." Too much. They said it like a fact, like a diagnosis, like something Ellie had failed to be without even knowing the rules. I bent down and held out my arms. "Come here, baby," I whispered. Ellie didn't run. She walked slowly, as if afraid to move too fast, afraid it might make everything worse. When her small arms wrapped around my neck, I felt the full weight of their rejection settle onto my chest. She didn't ask questions. She just buried her face in my shoulder. I wanted to scream. I wanted to beg. I wanted to ask how they could love Claire's kids like royalty while treating Ellie like noise. But instead, I just nodded. "Okay," I said, backing away from the porch. "Okay." I didn't look back. I carried Ellie to the car and buckled her in, brushing the hair from her damp cheeks while she stared out the window. I drove away in silence. The houses blurred past, neighbors watering lawns, kids on bikes, sprinklers clicking against pavement. My parents' neighborhood looked the same as always, but something inside me had changed. A string had snapped. A belief had died. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, trying to focus. Ellie was quiet in the backseat, and that silence hurt more than any tantrum ever could. She didn't understand, not fully, but she felt it, and I did too. The betrayal wasn't loud. It didn't come with yelling or slammed doors. It came with soft, final words and a porch light that didn't flicker as we left. What kind of grandparent tells their daughter not to come back with her child? What kind of parent looks at his granddaughter like a burden? I didn't have answers yet. Just a pulsing ache in my throat and a single promise repeating over and over in my mind. This ends here. That night, the apartment felt unusually quiet. Just the steady hum of the fridge and the low whoosh of cars outside. I sat at the kitchen table under the soft yellow light, absently peeling the label from my tea mug while Ellie sat across from me, swinging her legs and staring at the placemat. Her favorite one, pink with dancing cats wearing tutus. I'd bought it last spring, thinking it might make dinners more fun. It hadn't seen much action since we mostly ate on the couch these days, but tonight felt like we needed something solid. "Ellie," I said gently, "do you want to tell me what happened at Grandma and Grandpa's?" She looked up at me, her eyes still a little puffy. "Are you mad at me?" That question, it hit like a punch I hadn't braced for. "No," I said quickly, pushing my chair back and circling the table. I knelt beside her. "Sweetheart, I could never be mad at you for this. I need to understand." She took a breath like it cost her something. Then she nodded. "They yelled at me a lot," she said softly, Mostly Grandma. She said I whine too much, but I wasn't whining, Mommy. I just asked if I could color after lunch. Her lips trembled. And she said I was being annoying. My chest tightened. I tucked her hair behind her ear gently. What else did they say? Ellie looked down. They said I'm loud, that I make messes, but Claire's kids make messes too. And they yell louder than me when they play. Claire, my sister. Her twins were 7 and wild in the way boys often are, rambunctious and fearless. I'd seen them knock over lamps and spill milk all over my mother's Persian rug with nothing more than a laugh from my parents. And what happened when they made messes? I asked, though I already knew. Nothing, Ellie said. Grandpa said boys will be boys. Of course he did. Did they let you play with them? Ellie shook her head. They said I couldn't play with the nice toys. They said I lose things, but I don't. I only lost one shoe that time, and we found it under the couch. Her voice cracked on the word shoe. I wrapped my arms around her and held her tight. She was just 6. 6. How does a 6-year-old process rejection like that? I believe you, I whispered into her hair. You didn't do anything wrong. She clung to me like she was afraid I might disappear too. Later, after brushing her teeth and letting her pick 2 bedtime stories instead of one, I tucked her in with her favorite plush dog, Mellow. She asked me to leave the hallway light on, something she hadn't asked for in months. I didn't ask why. I just kissed her forehead and said, I'm right here if you need me. Back in the kitchen, I sat at the table again, hands wrapped around my now-cold tea. I stared at the floral wallpaper I'd picked when we moved in, thinking it might make the place feel warmer. It suddenly looked foreign, like it belonged to someone else's story. I thought about all the weekends I'd driven Ellie to my parents' house, thinking it gave her something special, time with family. Thinking I was giving them something too, connection, tradition, joy. And what did they give her in return? Scolding, exclusion, silence. I pulled my phone over and scrolled through old photos. Holidays, birthdays, summer barbecues. Ellie sitting politely next to her cousins, coloring while they wrestled. Ellie helping my mom in the kitchen, reaching for a mixing spoon with a hopeful smile. Had she ever really been welcome? I found a photo from last Thanksgiving. Ellie wearing her sparkly dress, holding a plate of cookies she'd decorated. Everyone else in the photo was turned toward Claire's twins, who had just accidentally sprayed whipped cream on the table. They were laughing. Ellie was invisible. I hadn't seen it before, but now it was everywhere. What else had I missed? I opened the Notes app and started typing, like I might forget if I didn't write it down. Maybe I've been a bad mom by trusting the wrong people. There, just those words. They stared back at me like a bruise I didn't know I had. The tears came quietly. Not loud, not frantic, just soft and steady, like something unraveling in slow motion. I had tried so hard to believe in family. I didn't know what I was going to do next. But I knew one thing for sure. Ellie wasn't going back. Not to them. Not ever. I don't remember falling asleep. Somewhere between folding laundry and staring at the blinking cursor in my Notes app, I drifted off on the couch. When I woke, it was still dark, just past 3 a.m., and the apartment was hushed except for the soft hum of the heater kicking in. Ellie's bedroom door was cracked just enough for me to see her nightlight glowing blue against the wall. I stood quietly, my muscles stiff, and walked to her door just to check. She was curled up on her side, clutching Mellow the plush dog like it was her lifeline. I closed the door softly and returned to the living room. The stillness made the weight heavier somehow. I grabbed my phone again, compulsive, mindless, and opened my gallery. I don't know why. Maybe I was hoping to find proof that I hadn't imagined all the love I thought existed between us and them. I started scrolling. There we were at the lake last summer, Mom holding Ellie's hand, helping her walk along the dock. She looked stiff, almost staged. In the next photo, Claire's boys were splashing in the water and my father was laughing, crouched beside them, soaked up to his knees. Ellie wasn't in that frame at all. I scrolled faster. Halloween. Claire's boys had coordinated superhero costumes. My mom had made them capes. Ellie was dressed as a butterfly, wings slightly bent, and standing a few feet away, her smile too small. I remembered that night. Mom had scolded Ellie for getting glitter on the car seats. I paused on one image, Ellie's 5th birthday. We'd held the party at my parents' house because it was bigger. In the photo, Ellie was about to blow out her candles. My mom was holding the cake but not looking at Ellie. She was watching Claire's kids climb onto the bench. The caption I'd written then said 3 generations of love. I wanted to laugh at how wrong I'd been. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought involving my parents, keeping them close, was what good daughters did. I wanted Ellie to have what I had, a sense of family, of belonging. But now I wondered if I'd been giving them power they never earned. And Ellie, she'd been absorbing the quiet rejections for years. I sat down at the kitchen table, grabbed the old spiral journal I hadn't touched in months, and flipped it open. The pen hovered for a second, unsure of where to start. Then I wrote, "Maybe I've been a bad mom by trusting the wrong people." Just writing it made my hands shake. I'd spent my whole adult life believing I was the bridge, the one who made everything easier. Claire lived 2 towns over, barely visited. I came every weekend. I brought groceries. I painted the porch last spring. I sent them money when the furnace broke. Not once did I think they might see me as less than because I had a daughter instead of a husband and 2 sons. Not once did I think they'd see Ellie as disposable. I flipped to the next page and started writing, not neatly, not carefully, just thoughts. Why didn't I notice sooner? How long have they felt this way about her? Why did I let it go every time they compared her to Claire's kids? What was I so afraid of losing by setting boundaries? I didn't know the answers yet, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid to ask the questions. I set the journal down, wiped my face with the sleeve of my hoodie, and stared at the wall for a while. The apartment was small, just 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, but it had always felt warm to me, cozy. Now it felt like a line had been drawn inside these walls, before and after. Before, I believed my parents loved my daughter. After, I knew they not in the way she deserved. There's something devastating about realizing your child isn't safe with the people who once held you safe. Like the floor drops out beneath something sacred. I'd spent years earning their approval. Not directly, just in the way daughters do. I cleaned up their messes. I kept the peace. I gave them every chance to feel included. Even when they made passive-aggressive comments about Ellie being spirited or needy. Even when they conveniently forgot her birthday one year and blamed it on the calendar. I forgave. I smoothed over. I showed up again and again. But now I couldn't unsee it. I couldn't unknow how easily they dismissed her. And that meant I had a choice to make, protect the peace or protect my daughter. There was no room for both anymore. The next morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I asked for help. I waited until Ellie was at school. Thankfully, she hadn't protested going, just clung to me a bit longer at drop-off. Then I sat back down at the kitchen table, the same place where I'd written in my journal hours before, and searched for therapists near me. The act alone felt strange, like I was violating some unspoken family code. In our house growing up, you didn't talk to strangers about private business. You smiled through pain. You pretended. You coped silently, but I wasn't pretending anymore. I found the name Dr. Lisa Niles after skimming through a few listings. Something about her bio stuck with me. She specialized in family trauma, mother-daughter dynamics, and childhood anxiety. Her website had soft colors, no stock photos of staged hand-holding, just warm descriptions that made me feel safe. I called her office before I could overthink it. Her assistant answered. "Dr. Niles has an opening tomorrow morning at 9:30, she said. "Would that work for you?" There was a long pause on my end, not because I was busy, just because something about committing made it real. "Yes," I said. "That works." I hung up, exhaled for what felt like the first time all morning, and then stared out the window for a long while. I'm doing it, Ellie. I'm really doing it. The next morning, I found myself standing in front of a small gray building with ivy crawling along one side and a hanging wooden sign that simply read, Niles Counseling. The waiting room was peaceful, soft jazz playing in the background, sunlight drifting in through half-drawn blinds. The smell of lavender hung in the air. Not overpowering, just enough to make me feel like I could breathe deeply for a change. When Dr. Niles came out to greet me, she wasn't what I expected. She looked more like someone's favorite aunt than a therapist, late 40s, soft gray sweater, reading glasses perched on her head. "Megan," she said with a calm smile. "Come in." Her office was warm without being crowded. One bookshelf, 2 chairs, and a thick patterned rug that muffled every step. I didn't know where to start. I'd rehearsed it all in the car, but now that I was sitting across from someone actually listening, the words jammed up in my throat. She waited, not pushy, just quiet presence. So I began where it had all cracked open. My parents told me not to bring my daughter back to their house, I said. They said they were tired of her, that she was too much. I kept my eyes on the fraying edge of the rug as the words tumbled out. She's 6. There was a pause. Then Dr. Niles asked, gently, "And how did that make you feel?" "I don't know," I said. Like I'd been punched, like someone reached into my chest and ripped out the last illusion I had about my family. She nodded, like she understood something deeper than what I'd said. I told her everything. The favoritism, the comparison to Claire's kids, the birthday Ellie cried through because they gave her a hand-me-down toy while Claire's boys got brand new bikes. The way my parents always acted like they were doing me a favor by watching Ellie, as though she were a burden I should be apologizing for. And the worst part is, I said, my voice cracking, I still feel guilty, like I'm the one who broke something. Dr. Niles was quiet for a moment, then said, "Megan, it sounds like this isn't the first time your family has made you feel that way." I blinked at her. "No," I admitted, "it's not." We traced it back. The way I was the helper growing up, the good girl, the one who did dishes, who watched Claire when Mom wanted to nap, the one who stayed home during prom because Claire forgot her asthma meds and someone had to drive them to the party. I was always the one who made things easier, who never asked for anything in return. It wasn't a new wound. It was just the first time I saw it clearly. That hour passed too fast. When I left, Dr. Niles handed me a small card with a simple sentence written on it. "Protecting your child is healing your child, but it's also healing the child you once were." I clutched that card like it was a life raft. Later that day, I picked up Ellie from school. She ran into my arms like nothing had happened, like the world hadn't shifted. I buckled her in and looked at her in the rearview mirror as she chattered about a story she'd written during reading time. Something small cracked open in my chest, a lightness I hadn't felt in days. We stopped for ice cream. We sat on the curb like teenagers and laughed as her cone dripped all over her sleeve. And I realized this was the beginning, not of pretending it hadn't happened, but of learning how to move forward with honesty, with boundaries, and maybe, eventually, with peace. James came home later than usual that night, carrying the usual scent of roasted coffee beans and printer toner that always lingered on his jacket after a long shift at the bookstore. "Hey," he said, setting his keys in the tray by the door. "I grabbed those veggie dumplings you like," and he held up a paper bag with a flourish, coconut milk ice cream. "Thought we might need it tonight." I hadn't told him everything yet, just that something had happened with my parents, but not the words. Not the actual words they said. Now, sitting together at our tiny kitchen table, Ellie asleep in the other room, soft jazz playing from James' phone speaker, I realized I couldn't carry it alone anymore. He handed me chopsticks. "You okay?" I nodded, then I shook my head. "Megan," his voice was low, concerned. "What happened?" I put down my fork, folded my hands in my lap, and told him everything, word for word. Every syllable my mother had said, every shrug my father gave, Ellie's tears. The way she'd walked to me, too quiet, too small, and how I hadn't known what to say because I was still frozen in disbelief. I didn't look at him while I spoke. I kept my eyes on the steam rising from the takeout box like it might hide me, but I felt him stiffen as I spoke. When I finally looked up, his jaw was clenched. "They said what?" he asked. I repeated it. "We're tired of her. Take her and don't bring her back." James stared at me for a long time, as if trying to decide between disbelief and fury. Then, slowly, he set down his food. "That's it," he said. I blinked. "What's it? No more money, no more favors, no more trying to be the good daughter to people who treat our child like she's an inconvenience." I stared at him. "We've been sending them money every month," he said, logging into the shared account on his phone. $600 since 2020. "I know," I said quietly. "We thought it was helping. We thought we were doing the right thing." "No," James said firmly. "You thought that, and I trusted your gut, but if your gut is telling you something different now, then we're done." He held his phone up so I could see the screen. Transfer canceled, recurring payment deleted. There was something symbolic in the way he hit confirm. Not angry, just final. And in that moment I felt something inside me shift, not because of the money, but because I realized I didn't have to be the only one holding the weight. James reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm so sorry," he said. That they treated her like that they made you feel like this was your fault. Tears gathered in my eyes again, sudden and unwanted. I didn't want to cry, not again. But this time it wasn't grief, it was relief. You always try to see the good in people, James added. It's one of the things I love most about you. But you don't owe anyone access to our daughter, especially not people who use love like a reward system. I nodded, silent. And Megan? Yeah. You didn't do anything wrong, don't let them rewrite that in your head. We sat there a long time, neither of us eating, both of us just holding hands across a scratched-up kitchen table, while the world outside kept spinning. Later, after the dishes were rinsed and the lights dimmed, I curled up next to him on the couch. We didn't talk much, just sat in quiet companionship. At one point, I rested my head on his chest, and he held me tighter than usual. And in that soft, ordinary moment, I felt it again, that thread of strength weaving itself back into me. It didn't fix everything, but it reminded me of this. I wasn't alone. The second time I sat across from Dr. Niles, I didn't hesitate. She asked how I'd been since our first session, and I didn't sugarcoat it. Tired, I said, but not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. She nodded. Emotional labor exhaustion. I laughed quietly, bitterly. Is that a real term? She smiled gently. It should be. It's when you've spent your life trying to manage other people's feelings, anticipate their moods, soften their edges until you forget you were supposed to have feelings too. I let that sit for a second. Then I said the thing I hadn't yet said aloud. I don't think this started with Ellie. Dr. Niles leaned forward just slightly. Go on. And so I did. I told her about growing up in that same suburban Minnesota house, split-level, beige, perfectly trimmed hedges. From the outside, we were fine, stable, predictable, but inside it was a different story. I was the helper, I said. Always. When Claire was moody, I kept her company. When Mom was tired, I made dinner. When Dad got home and the kitchen wasn't clean, I apologized even if I hadn't made the mess. Dr. Niles didn't interrupt. They never told me I had to do those things, not in words, but it was always clear if I wanted peace, if I wanted affection, I had to earn it. Claire didn't. She could storm out, slam doors, refuse to help, and they'd still bend around her. And you? Dr. Niles asked. I got told I was so reliable, I said. Like it was a compliment, but it was a trap, because if I ever wasn't, if I said no, if I needed space, I was difficult. Or worse. Ungrateful. I paused. The air felt thick. And now, I added, they've labeled my daughter the same way. Too much, Dr. Niles said softly. I nodded. It's like they passed the same judgment down the line, only this time it's not me they're trying to shrink, it's her. A silence followed, not heavy but purposeful. Then she said, children who are taught love is conditional often grow into adults who confuse obligation with loyalty. You showed up for your parents because you wanted connection. But they were never showing up for you, not truly, they were just accepting what you offered. And resenting me when I stopped, I whispered. Yes, she said. Because people who benefit from your silence are always disturbed by your boundaries. That landed hard. I looked down at my lap. I used to think being the dependable one was something to be proud of. It is, she said, but not if it costs you your dignity. We sat quietly after that. I could feel something shifting in my chest. Not anger, exactly. Not sadness either. Just realization. The kind that makes your skin feel too tight for a second. I left the office with a new assignment. Write a list of things I did out of guilt versus things I did out of love. She said the contrast might tell me more than I expected. Back home, after Ellie fell asleep watching a cartoon about dancing penguins, I pulled out my journal and opened a clean page. Things I did out of guilt. Let them babysit Ellie even after she cried the last 2 visits. Sent money each month because they've done so much for me. Visited on holidays even when I felt sick with anxiety before walking in the door. Told Ellie. They didn't mean it that way, even when they clearly did. Things I did out of love. Bought my dad that new winter coat when his old one was falling apart. Took Mom to her doctor appointments without her having to ask. Brought flowers to the house on Mother's Day, even when they forgot my birthday. I stared at the list and saw the same truth written between the lines. Even the things I thought I did out of love were often born of fear. Fear of being unloved, unseen, discarded like Ellie was. The difference was she wasn't going to repeat my pattern. I wouldn't let her. It started with a text. Claire, hey, I heard something happened with Mom and Dad. Can I call? I stared at the message longer than I probably should have. Claire rarely texted without a purpose. Growing up, she'd never been the one to reach out unless she wanted something, a ride, a favor, a way to get out of trouble without talking to our parents directly. But this felt different. So I typed back me, sure, Ellie's asleep, I can talk. The phone rang less than a minute later. Hey, she said, her voice clipped and unsure. You okay? I let out a slow breath. Define okay. A small laugh, then silence. Yeah, I figured. She didn't launch into the usual light pleasantries. No mention of weather or the kids or recipes she wanted to trade, just a beat of quiet before she asked. What happened? I told her, not all at once, but enough. The pickup, the exact words, Ellie's tears, the way our parents dismissed her like a badly behaved dog, not a child they were supposed to love. I didn't exaggerate. I didn't downplay. I just said the truth. When I finished, Claire didn't respond right away. Finally, she said softly, they really said that to you, out loud. I nodded before realizing she couldn't see me. Yes, and not in the heat of the moment either. It was calculated, cold, they meant it. Claire let out a shaky exhale. God, I shouldn't have been surprised, I added. They've been comparing Ellie to your boys since she was in diapers. Another silence. Then, I didn't know it was that bad. I could hear something shifting in her tone. Like someone flipping through old photos and realizing half of them were fake smiles. Claire, I said carefully, can I ask you something? Yeah. When we were growing up, did you ever feel like they treated us differently? She hesitated. I always thought it was because you were older. I almost smiled. Claire, I'm only 2 years older. I know, but you were the one who handled stuff, the one who knew how to do everything. They leaned on you. They leaned on me, I repeated. And never asked if I had anything left to give. Claire didn't argue. I think, she said slowly, I was so used to them defending me, I didn't realize how often they were failing you. That sentence, I didn't expect it. I didn't know how much I needed it. There was a pause, softer this time. I remember, she said quietly, the summer after my divorce when I dropped the boys off at Mom and Dad's for the week. You were there too. And you were the one making snacks, cleaning up spills, getting them to bed. Not Mom, not Dad, you. I remember that too, I said. They went to bed at 8. I stayed up scrubbing grape juice out of the carpet. I never said thank you. You didn't have to, I said. You were drowning. I was trying to be the life raft. Her voice cracked. Maybe I let you drown too. I didn't answer that. I didn't need to. Another pause. I'm going to talk to them, Claire said. I didn't know they'd crossed this line with Ellie. I swear I didn't. I believe you, I said, but I didn't say I forgive you. Not yet, maybe not ever, but belief was something. And it was more than I'd gotten from anyone else in my family in a very long time. Can I bring the boys by this weekend? She asked. They've been asking about Ellie, no pressure if it's too much. No, I said. It's okay, I think she'd like that. And I meant it. Because for the first time, the possibility of something different, something better wasn't a fantasy. It was inching toward real. We hung up not with resolution, but with recognition. The kind of truth that sits between sisters who have been on different sides of the same wound. I went to bed that night feeling something unfamiliar. Not peace, but possibility. It started with a text. Not from Claire. She'd followed up that morning with a sweet photo of her boys holding a "see you soon" sign for Ellie. No, this one came from her. Mom, maybe we overreacted. You know how kids can be, just like that. No greeting, no apology, no name, just a single sentence that somehow made my skin crawl. I stared at it for a long time. Read it again. And again. Maybe we overreacted. You know how kids can be. 6 words designed to shrink the entire event into a misunderstanding. A slip. A momentary lapse. It wasn't even a real acknowledgement, just a casual shrug disguised as outreach. As if telling your daughter not to bring her child back was something a polite clarification could undo. I didn't respond. A full day passed. Then came the voicemail. My phone buzzed during Ellie's dance class. I saw Dad flash across the screen and silenced it immediately. But later, in the quiet of the car while Ellie munched on crackers in the backseat, I played it. His voice filled the car like a memory I hadn't asked for. Megan, it's me. Listen, I heard you're talking to Claire now. That's good. Family should stick together, you know? I don't know why you're taking this so far. Your mother's text was her way of reaching out, and your silence isn't helping. I get that you're upset, but don't make this bigger than it is. We all say things in the moment. Let's not turn this into a thing. Call me back. My stomach clenched. He always sounded reasonable. That was his gift and his weapon. He'd been the calm one growing up, the steady voice, the one who made everything seem like it was no big deal, even when it was. I hit delete. I knew what this was. I'd lived it for 30-something years, a refusal to own harm, a skillful reframing of pain as miscommunication, a deep, unwavering loyalty to keeping the peace, no matter the cost. But this wasn't peace. It was erasure. And I wasn't going to let them erase my daughter's tears. Not this time. Later that evening, after Ellie fell asleep, tangled in her blanket, arms splayed wide like a starfish, I sat on the couch with James and played him the voicemail. He listened quietly, didn't interrupt. When it ended, he looked at me and said, "They're starting the guilt campaign." I nodded. "I know. You okay?" "I'm mad," I said. "Not even because they want to pretend it didn't happen. I expected that, but because they think I'm still the same girl who would take the blame just to keep the peace." James reached for my hand. "You're not." That night, I didn't cry. I didn't journal. I didn't spiral into self-doubt. I just lay awake for a long time, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the times I'd let them rewrite the story. This time, I wouldn't let them hold the pen. Claire showed up on a Saturday afternoon with her boys in tow. They tumbled through my apartment door like a pair of golden retrievers, all energy and volume, their sneakers squeaking against the hardwood. Ellie's face lit up when she saw them. Her whole body seemed to relax. It had been a long week of whispered questions and half-silent meals, but suddenly there she was again, giggling, dragging out her toy bins, negotiating who got to play with the glitter markers first. The sound filled the apartment like sunlight. Claire carried in a grocery bag and set it on the counter. "I brought wine and chips, the fancy kind with sea salt." I raised an eyebrow. "Making peace offerings already." "Maybe," she said with a crooked smile. We settled onto the couch after the kids disappeared into Ellie's room. I could hear them negotiating a fort out of pillows and bedsheets, voices rising and falling like waves. For once, I didn't feel the need to hover. Claire twisted the wine bottle open and poured us each a glass. "I've been thinking," she began. I braced myself. "About what you said about Mom and Dad and about Ellie." She stared into her glass. "I used to think they were just tired, you know. Getting older, less patient. But I started replaying things, little things, and I can't unsee it now." Her voice faltered. "They never treated my kids like that, not once. Even when the twins broke Mom's lamp, even when they smeared peanut butter on the couch. Dad laughed. Mom called them lively." I nodded, the memory vivid in my own mind. "And then I remembered," she continued, "all the times you stepped in. The birthday cakes, the groceries, the rides. I think I thought of it as your role. You were just better at responsibility. But now," she looked up at me, her eyes suddenly wet. "Now I see it. They leaned on you and they praised me, and I never questioned it." Her words cracked something open in me. Not anger this time, something softer, recognition. "I think I needed to believe it was fair," Claire whispered. "Because if I admitted it was, then I'd have to admit I let it happen." We sat in silence for a moment, the hum of Ellie's desk lamp spilling out from the bedroom, the muffled laughter of the kids filling the air between us. "You see it now," I said quietly. "I do." "Then don't look away," she nodded. "I won't." For the first time in years, we laughed together, real laughter, not the brittle kind we'd forced at family dinners. We shared the chips, swapped stories about work, and for a few rare hours spoke like sisters instead of rivals. When the boys finally emerged, red-faced and sweaty from their elaborate fort game, Claire helped gather them up. She hugged me at the door tight without hesitation. "I'm on your side," she whispered. "I just never saw it clearly until now." After they left, Ellie crawled into my lap, her cheeks pink from all the playing. "Mommy," she said, yawning, "Aunt Claire's nice now." I smiled into her hair. "Yeah, baby, she is." And for the first time in months, the apartment felt less like a fortress. It felt like the beginning of something new. It was a Tuesday evening when the knock came. Not a quick neighborly tap, not a child's impatient rattle, but a steady, deliberate knock. The kind that announces presence before the door even opens. I knew before I looked. Through the peephole, I saw them, my parents. My mother in her pressed beige coat, hair set like she'd just left the salon. My father holding a plastic bag from the local bakery, the faint outline of cookies visible through the plastic. They were smiling like this was normal, like they hadn't banished my daughter from their lives weeks ago. I opened the door only as wide as the chain allowed. "Megan," my mother said brightly, her voice coated in that sing-song cheer she saved for strangers and PTA meetings. "We were in the neighborhood and thought we'd drop by." "In the neighborhood," I repeated. "On a Tuesday at 7 o'clock." Her smile faltered, then snapped back into place. "We brought cookies, your favorite, oatmeal raisin." Behind me, Ellie stirred from the couch. "Mommy, who is it?" My father leaned forward, trying to peer past me into the apartment. "Hi, sweetheart," he called in his warmest tone. Ellie froze. She didn't answer. She just clutched Mello, her plush dog, tighter against her chest. I stepped forward, blocking their view. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice steady but not soft. My mother blinked, as though the question itself were rude. "We wanted to see you, to see Ellie. You've been so distant." "Distant?" I echoed. "You told me not to bring her back, remember?" My father cleared his throat. "Megan, let's not dredge that up again. We all said things in the moment. We've had time to cool off, haven't you?" I let the silence hang. Finally, I said, "She's 6. She doesn't forget words like that. Neither do I." My mother's smile cracked. "We don't need to make this into some grand performance. Families fight. Families forgive. That's how it works." "No," I said. "That's how it worked for you. You said cruel things, pretended they were harmless, and expected me to smooth it over. But this isn't just about me anymore. You hurt my daughter." My father sighed, exasperated now. "You're making this bigger than it is. You always had a flair for drama." Something inside me straightened at those words. Not wilted, not weakened, straightened. I unhooked the chain and stepped out into the hallway, closing the door firmly behind me so Ellie wouldn't hear. "You don't get to walk back in here with cookies and fake smiles like nothing happened," I said. My voice was calm, almost frighteningly so even to me. "You don't get to see her unless you take accountability. Real accountability, not half apologies, not excuses, not this." They exchanged a glance, the same wordless communication they'd always had. United, steady, certain, but I didn't flinch. "I'm not playing peacekeeper anymore," I said, my throat tight but my hands steady. "If you want a relationship with me, or with Ellie, you'll need to start by admitting what you did, out loud, without minimizing it. Until then, there's no place for you in our lives." My mother's face hardened, her mask slipping for the first time. "You'd really shut us out, your own parents." I held her gaze. "You already shut yourselves out when you rejected my daughter." The silence after that felt endless. Finally, my father shoved the bakery bag into my hands. "Suit yourself," he muttered. They turned, walking briskly down the hall, my mother's heels clacking against the linoleum. I stood there, bag in hand, until they disappeared around the corner. Then I dropped it in the trash. When I went back inside, Ellie was still curled up on the couch, her eyes wide. "Was that Grandma and Grandpa?" she asked. "Yes," I said softly. "Are they coming in?" I shook my head. "Not tonight, not until they're ready to be kind." She nodded slowly, as if weighing my words, then rested her head back on the cushion. Her small body relaxed again. And in that moment, I realized something important. Protecting her wasn't about fighting battles. It was about drawing the line and refusing to let anyone cross it. Winter had come and gone. By the time spring settled in, I had almost grown used to the silence. No more texts, no more voicemails, no surprise visits at my door. It was strange. After years of constant tension, the absence itself became a kind of presence. Like walking into a room and realizing the humming refrigerator had stopped. You don't notice it until it's gone, and then the stillness is deafening. Ellie and I had slipped into a new rhythm. Therapy sessions, Saturday dance classes, movie nights with popcorn spilled across the couch. She was lighter now, freer. She didn't ask about her grandparents anymore. That silence spoke volumes too. Then one gray afternoon in May, they came back. I was folding laundry when the knock came, sharp, urgent, nothing like the rehearsed politeness of last time. Through the peephole, I saw them, not polished, not composed, weary. My father's shoulders hunched in a way I'd never seen. My mother's makeup smudged, her coat unbuttoned, hair unkempt. They looked smaller somehow, as if the air itself had pressed down on them. I opened the door halfway, blocking the entrance with my body. "Megan," my mother said quickly, her voice high and cracked. "Please, we need to talk." "What is it?" I asked flatly. "Our house." She stopped, glanced at my father. He finished the sentence. "They took it, the bank. We fell behind on the mortgage. We didn't tell you because we thought we could fix it, but now," he gestured helplessly, "we don't know where to go." I stood frozen, the words slowly sinking in. "You lost the house." My mother nodded, her eyes filling. "We thought maybe. Until we get back on our feet. You want to stay here." Neither of them spoke, but their silence was answer enough. Behind me, I felt Ellie's presence before I saw her. She padded into the hallway, holding Mello by one paw. Her hair was mussed from her nap, her eyes heavy but alert. She stood beside me, close enough that our shoulders touched. My parents' eyes flicked to her. For a moment, I thought I saw something human flicker there, regret maybe, but it was gone as quickly as it came. "Megan," my father began, "we're family. Families help each other." The irony nearly made me laugh. I crouched down, placing a hand gently on Ellie's back. She leaned into me, silent, waiting. I looked my parents dead in the eye. "We're tired of you," I said. My voice didn't waver. "Get out and don't come back." The words hung heavy in the air, sharp and final. Their faces drained of color. My mother gasped like I'd struck her. My father opened his mouth, then shut it again. For once, he had no reasonable tone, no clever deflection. They turned, walking slowly down the hall. Shoulders bent, steps dragging, no cookies, no speeches, just the quiet shuffle of people who had finally been told no. I closed the door and locked it. Ellie slipped her hand into mine. "Mommy," she whispered, "you sounded really strong." I pulled her into my arms, pressing my face into her hair. My heart was pounding, but for the first time in months, it wasn't from fear. It was peace. Pure, unshakable peace. There was no dramatic shift, no thunderclap. No single moment where the world announced, "You've made it through." But somehow, quietly, we did. Summer came gently, early blooms on the windowsill, the hum of cicadas at dusk, and the rhythm of a life that no longer required defense. Ellie and I found our groove again. It wasn't perfect, but it was ours. We got matching water bottles and packed snacks for dance class. She danced with more freedom now, less need to be good and more joy in simply being. I started to notice things I'd overlooked before, like how she sang under her breath when she colored, or how she always left a sticker on the corner of her mirror, like a private reminder to herself. The apartment felt lighter, too. Not physically. Our space was still small, the walls still held the familiar cracks, but emotionally, something had shifted. There was no longer the invisible thread pulling me back to old obligations. No lingering dread when the phone buzzed. No guilt simmering behind every quiet moment, just breath and space and us. James stood taller now, too, not because anything had changed between us, but because something had changed within me, and he saw it. One evening, as we folded laundry together, he said, "I feel like I have you back, not the version trying to keep everything from falling apart. Just you." I hadn't realized how far I'd gone until I heard those words. We held hands more. We kissed in the kitchen when Ellie wasn't looking. We laughed again, not out of relief, but out of shared joy. Claire began visiting every other weekend. No agenda, no forced pleasantries. Just a sister sitting across from me on the couch while our kids turned the living room into a fort. She brought cookies she baked herself, wine she didn't expect me to like, and once a box of old family photos she'd found in storage. We flipped through them together. There I was, 6 years old, balancing a cake on my lap at my own birthday party while Claire blew out the candles. Another of me vacuuming the living room in my pajamas, barely 12. And one of Claire on prom night with me in the background, holding her clutch while she posed for Mom's camera. We didn't say much. We didn't need. She reached over, rested her hand on mine. "I see it now," she whispered. That was enough. Dr. Niles once told me that healing isn't loud. It's not dramatic or obvious. It's a quiet refusal to keep reliving the same pain. A decision, small, daily, stubborn, to choose differently. I was choosing differently. There were still days when the past tried to knock at the door, some memory, some twinge of old guilt, but I didn't open it anymore. I didn't invite it in. One night, while brushing Ellie's hair after her bath, she looked up at me in the mirror. Mommy, she said, remember when you used to be sad a lot? I paused. Yes, I do. She smiled at my reflection. You're not sad now. I wrapped my arms around her, kissed the top of her damp head. No, baby, I'm not. We didn't need a big house or family approval or generational permission to be okay. We just needed truth and each other. 1 year later, I walked into Ellie's first-grade classroom with a bundle of nerves in my stomach and a granola bar in my purse, just in case she forgot breakfast again. The bulletin board near the front door read, "Our heroes." A project in courage, colorful crayon posters fluttered in the air conditioning. Parents milled around with lattes and camera phones, nodding at each other with soft smiles and occasional tearful eyes. Mrs. Randall spotted me and waved. "Megan, Ellie's just getting her turn." I followed the small crowd of grown-ups into the classroom's reading corner, where Ellie stood proudly next to an easel. She wore her glitter sneakers and the yellow dress with daisies she insisted on picking herself. Her hair was clipped back with butterfly barrettes, 2 on each side, uneven but determined. On the easel, taped with purple washi tape, was her poster. My hero, my mommy below the title were crayon illustrations. Me standing tall, arms out like a superhero. Her beside me holding my hand. And behind us a dragon, not a scary one. Not roaring or monstrous, just big looming in the background with pain written across its belly in glitter glue. I smiled before I could stop myself. My eyes burned. Ellie cleared her throat dramatically, as if commanding the courtroom. My mommy is my hero because she makes me feel safe. One time people said something mean about me. My mommy said, "You don't have to go back there ever again." She paused, looking around at the parents, proud and unflinching. She hugs me when I'm scared. She reads stories even when she's tired. And she teaches me that we don't keep people in our life who are mean, even if they're grown-ups. There was a beat of silence, then claps, gentle, surprised, emotional claps. She looked right at me and beamed. I couldn't move for a moment, couldn't clap, couldn't speak. I just looked at my daughter, this small, fierce, glowing human who had already understood something I hadn't learned until I was 35. That love, real love, is never cruel. Afterward, as we walked home hand in hand under the soft gold light of late afternoon, she looked up at me and said, "Did I say it right?" I squeezed her hand. "You said it perfectly." At home, the poster went up on the fridge, crooked and glorious. Claire texted to say she'd cried when I sent her a photo. "James brought home flowers that night, for our superhero," he said with a wink. We had takeout on the floor, the 3 of us, laughing as Ellie tried to get rice onto chopsticks and finally gave up with a shrug. And later, after bedtime stories and bear hugs and one more glass of water, because I'm thirsty for real this time, I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at that dragon on the poster. Pain. I used to think pain was something I had to carry quietly.